What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be taking an early look at our top 5 favorite breakout candidates for the 2024 fantasy football season. These are guys that we think will break out for the first time, really exceed expectations, and carry your fantasy football teams this year. So sit back, relax, enjoy. If you do, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at All Day Pigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear in the comments section. Agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have. We'll do our best to answer them all. But with that being said, let's get right into it. As you can see, we have got the current quote unquote consensus rankings pulled up here as of late May. Now, these things will be subject to change, but the breakouts, they're kind of going to remain as is, independent of where they line up in these rankings. The formats, whether it's standard, PPR, won't matter too much. So let's just kind of get into it. And the first name on our list, we won't have to look far. I've got Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons. You might be saying, again, Bijan Robinson is ranked as a top 10 guy. He's typically the third overall running back drafted. How can you have him as a breakout? Well, again, the breakout situation is kind of independent of where these guys are being drafted. If anything, it kind of, enforces the fact that other individuals are also very high on this player and believe that a similar type of statistical production can be had by them. Now, the reason why I want to shed some light on Bijan Robinson, again, look, get the fact that he's a top 10 pick, first round selection out of your mind, because that was also the case last year, right? And in fact, he had more hype surrounding him last year, I would argue, than in 2024. And if you look at the statistical finishes from last year at the running back position, he finished 9th overall in PPR scoring. A lot closer to outside the top 10 than inside the top 5, which a lot of people kind of expected. He was the best running back prospect to come out in years, and an elite rusher, an elite pass catcher. Yet when he went to Atlanta, through a combination of system, through a combination of coaching decisions, and backfield tandems, he wasn't utilized up to his potential. And I think we all saw that. We were a little bit frustrated with Bijan Robinson because we knew the upside was so much more. And now, with 2023 behind us and 2024, a new year for the Atlanta Falcons with a lot of changes, right? New head coach, new systems being implemented, but most importantly, you've got the addition of Kirk Cousins. And yes, Cousins is coming off an injury, but you've also got, a backup plan in Penix. Both situations, I think, much better than Ritter as your starting running back. That will absolutely change this Atlanta offense and allow them to focus on the running attack, not have to abandon it, in my opinion. And then you've also got the pass catching abilities of Bijan Robinson. I think he's going to be featured this year. And basically what's going to happen is all the flashes that we saw last year from Bijan, all the teasing that we had from him, all the upside that we were ready to invest in his rookie season, that was just a year too early because of the circumstance, because of the environment, will come to fruition here in 2024. And that's why you're seeing the high draft capital attached to him. That's why other individuals are also having him as a borderline tier 1 running back, because all the talent is there. We all talked about it. We all shed a light on it in the 2023 NFL draft. That's why he was drafted, for God's sake, so highly, even though he was a running back. The Falcons have big plans for him, and he will shine for fantasy football purposes, especially with Kirk Cousins in this offense that's going to open things up for a lot of players on this team. That's why we feel really good about Bijan Robinson where he is right now. And unlike last year, we can actually endorse the high ADP for him in 2024. But let's move on here. And not too much further down this list is one Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets. And look, man, it sounds like at this point in time we are the Garrett Wilson fan club, but I mean, it's tough not to love Garrett Wilson in the situation. We were all aboard last year with Garrett Wilson because we realized that Aaron Rodgers coming to town was going to be an immense improvement upon the previous situation in New York. And unfortunately, we had that taken away from us pretty quickly. As in the first game of the season, Aaron Rodgers goes down with an Achilles injury. And then, well, I mean, I'd say not Randy Moss or Jerry Rice himself could overcome the play of one Zach Wilson at quarterback. So, for that reason, I think here with, again, hopefully fingers crossed, a healthy Aaron Rodgers, we will see from Garrett Wilson, again, similar to a Bijan Robinson, what we expected last year, what we were robbed of last year. And look, even with the absolute garbage play of Zach Wilson in 2023, Garrett Wilson was still able to put together some decent performances, but it wasn't anything near to what we knew he was capable in terms of high-end wide receiver one production. Like, thank God for PPR formats because he was force-fed the ball sometimes, and he had like 6 or 7 catches, albeit for 30, 40, 50 yards. And he was at least able to get you some double-digit numbers for fantasy, but now with Aaron Rodgers, this is one of the best offenses that Aaron Rodgers has played in. Again, we do these projections based on assuming that certain that players will play a full season, unless we know in time that there is an injury that they are dealing with. But right now, all reports saying that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a full go. So that's what we're going off of. Now, sure, if you want to say that there's risk associated with Garrett Wilson because of who his quarterback is, then I'm not going to argue with you too much. And if you want to dock him a couple of points in terms of where you should be drafting him, but here we're talking breakouts, which is a different conversation. We're talking about the likelihood of a guy absolutely, breaking out and carrying your team, being a top 5 guy for the first time really in his career. And Garrett Wilson has that ability with a legitimate quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. We've seen what Aaron Rodgers does with talented wide receivers. Like, he turned Jordy Nelson into a league winner. He turned Devontae Adams into one of the best wide receivers in NFL. Garrett Wilson has those traits. Garrett Wilson can be that next guy that Aaron Rodgers helps launch into the stratosphere. And I'm extremely high on him again this year. I've said it before. I actually have him in my tier 1 group of wide receivers. And I'd be comfortable drafting him in the first round if you can get over, the Aaron Rodgers coming back from the Achilles. Again, he's had over basically a year to rehab that, and he was on the positive side of it last year in the middle point of the year. So I like Garrett Wilson. We've all seen the abilities, and now with an Aaron Rodgers for the entirety of the year, I really do think that anything is possible for Garrett Wilson, and that he could end up outplaying guys like A.J. Brown, guys like Amon-Ra, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase. So for that reason, I really like Garrett Wilson. But now let's kind of scroll down to some other names here that aren't as highly rated that we also think could qualify for this breakout conversation. And that here is Drake London of the Atlanta Falcons coming in at number 22. And I said it before with Bijan Robinson, having Kirk Cousins in this Atlanta offense is going to be a game changer for these talented offensive playmakers for the Falcons. We saw the upside last year for Drake London. Now, again, similar to Bijan, it was up and down because of the poor play of Desmond Ridder. But with Kirk Cousins, Drake London is going to be the pretty much number 1 guy for him. And he's going to be in that Justin Jefferson type of role. Now, I'm not saying he has all the tools of a Justin Jefferson, but we know what Kirk Cousins does with his top overall wide receivers. He force feeds them the ball. And if they're talented, they're going to take advantage of that. We know that Drake London has the tools. Again, he's shown us the capabilities, similar to a Garrett Wilson, that with a poor quarterback, he can still put together some good games. Now you give him consistency at the quarterback position, and a quarterback that will air out the football like Kirk Cousins has before, then man, Drake London is in store for potentially the best year of his young career. And similar to Bijan Robinson, he will be featured on this offense. I'm looking at the pass catchers on this team, and honestly, like, it's Drake London, it's Kyle Pitts, it's Bijan Robinson. That's the trio right there. Other wide receivers, I mean, I don't really think that the Falcons did anything elite at the wide receiver position. I would say there's a decent gap between Drake London and the other wide receivers on this team. Like, okay, if the Falcons added Rome Odunze or something like that, where they had the chance to do that in the first round of the NFL draft, then it'd be a slightly different conversation. But I think that Drake London is the clear alpha on this team, and I feel comfortable drafting him in the middle point of the second round. I think that, again, you compare him to some of these other wide receivers that are going in that range. I mean, Marvin Harrison, Brendan Ayuk, Chris Olave, Michael Pittman. To me, Drake London has better quarterback play compared to a lot of those guys. He has the proven upside as opposed to a rookie, let's say, in Marvin Harrison. So I think that Drake London makes a lot of sense here, right around this range, and is easy to pinpoint as the highest upside out of those potential wide receivers. Now, if we really wanted to make this an all-inclusive, longer type of list, this could be like the Atlanta Falcons featured video, because, I mean, you want to put Kyle Pitts in this breakout video, I wouldn't have too many issues with that either. But again, I think that's a conversation for another time when we're discussing tight ends. Now let's just continue to move on with the next name that I want to highlight. And after Drake London, we do a little bit more scrolling, I will admit, but we get to the name on this list that I do want to highlight, and that is one Terry McLaurin of the Washington Commanders. And with Terry McLaurin, look, this is a situation where we've seen the teases. We've seen it. You look at his stats, he's actually had 4 back-to-back seasons of 1,000 plus yards. So the guy's a proven producer at the wide receiver position. The difference is it's been consistency, it's been lack of touchdowns, and it's been, again, poor quarterback play. Now, with Terry McLaurin, unfortunately, Washington has been in a situation where they've had the playmaker in place at the wide receiver position. It's been them trying to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback. You know, if Kirk Cousins had stayed in Washington, I think we'd be talking about Terry McLaurin, again, not exactly like a Justin Jefferson, but much closer to consensus top 12 wide receiver than we normally are. And again, a lot of it has to do with the quarterback play and the quarterback that is in place. Like, we went through these phases. You know, we kind of have to take a step back and go several years back in time. And if you guys remember this, kind of going back to when Ryan Fitzpatrick was signed by Washington. And a lot of people got excited then about Terry McLaurin because, okay, Ryan Fitzpatrick is not an elite quarterback, but what he was a gunslinger that would air out the football and would produce a lot of fantasy upside for his wide receivers. That was one of the first times when Terry McLaurin, the hype started growing around him and saying, okay, we can see the potential breakout, the potential leap that he will take. But obviously, you had injuries, things of that nature, and Ryan Fitzpatrick was never really able to get it going in Washington. Then there were similar type of upside talks with guys like a Sam Howell. That never really panned out. Obviously, no longer there in Washington. But the big difference is now, look, you got Jaden Daniels, and the Washington Commanders invested the second overall pick in him, and I think that he is a much better quarterback than what Washington has had up until this point. I think that Terry McLaurin is the best overall wide receivers currently on this roster. Like, I'm not looking at Jahan Dotson and saying, oh, Dotson is going to overtake Terry McLaurin or anything like that. No, Terry McLaurin is the most consistent guy on this team. He's the most experienced guy on the team. And I think he's the most versatile guy in terms of tools, in terms of abilities, in terms of everything. So to me, it's going to be a fifth straight year of 1,000-yard season. And more so than anything, what I'm excited about is the consistency that we can potentially finally see with Terry McLaurin, with a legitimate quarterback, in my opinion. Now, yes, look, there's going to be some ups and downs, as is the case with any rookie quarterback. But Terry McLaurin is the top weapon on this team. I think he is going to immediately become the favorite target for Daniels. And he's going to have a lot of opportunities. That's what this boils down to. And I think out of all the years that we've been saying, this could be the Terry McLaurin breakout year. This could be the year. He's so undervalued. He's so talented, but he can finally put it all together. I think 2024 is finally the year where we can honestly say this is the highest likelihood, the highest chance of that finally coming to fruition and finally panning out, and for him being talked about as a wide receiver one for fantasy and real life purposes. And that's why I think right now, where he's currently being drafted, like depending on the size of the league, a fifth, sixth rounder, that's tremendous value for Terry McLaurin. And I would take that all day, every day. But let's move on to the last name on this list, another wide receiver, George Pickens of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I love George Pickens in Pittsburgh, especially without Deontay Johnson now. I think that Pickens is by far and away the best wide receiver the Pittsburgh Steelers have. Now, there's some other guys there, but again, it's tough to get extremely excited about them. If you ask me, the Steelers could use another proven kind of wide receiver, but we'll see what they end up doing. Again, the reason why I'm excited is because Pickens has been set free from the football hell of quarterback play that was Kenny Pickett. Now he's going to have either one Russell Wilson or Justin Fields throwing him the football. And look, I get it. It's very easy to hate on Russell Wilson and his whole thing, but even though he's not the Russell Wilson of old, where he was supporting talent like an elite DK Metcalf, an elite Tyler Lockett, an elite Doug Baldwin, if you want to go all the way back to those days, Russell Wilson was still better than what we saw from Kenny Pickett, still gave some decent production to a Cortland Sutton last year, Jerry Jeudy. So I think that Pickens is going to immediately be in a better situation. And if Justin Fields ends up winning that quarterback competition, then great, fine. I think that he's also a better quarterback upgrade than Kenny Pickett. Like, we saw what Justin Fields just did with DJ Moore. That was last year in 2023. That was a big reason why I would say like 50% of Chicago Bears fans were saying, keep Justin Fields, build around him, don't draft Caleb Williams, instead draft like Marvin Harrison and give this guy even more weapons to work with, because he provided DJ Moore with arguably his best quarterback of his career, and DJ Moore was able to come out with one of his best seasons and was a wide receiver one for fantasy purposes. And we think that George Pickens has that similar type of breakout. He was putting together some elite games, even with Kenny Pickett, even with Deontay Johnson. So I think right now everything is aligned for George Pickens to, blow out previous production. And again, when you tie this to a 6th round kind of ADP for fantasy football, I think Pickens is going to be an absolute smash. Now, for what it's worth, I bet you that come July, come August, come September, he is one of those guys that his ADP is going to be going up. It's going to be going up into the 50s, into the 40s. To me, for example, I don't think that George Pickens should be lower than a Zay Flowers. I don't think that George Pickens should be lower than an Amari Cooper, a Devonta Smith. So I think that's a really interesting situation, and one that if you can capitalize on now, I think you will be thanking yourself later on come the fantasy football season. But with that, we kind of wrap up this early look at some of these top 5 breakout candidates for the 2024 season. As always, if you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear in the comment section, did you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have? We'll do our best to answer them all. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.